A champagne glass still in my hand, neon lights still pulsing over my shoulders, and I see them. My best friend Ava, her fingers hooked in Ethan's belt loop, kissing him like she's done it 100 times, at my own app launch party. And the worst part? When I told my family, they didn't ask if I was okay. They told me to understand her. My own mother said, "She's fragile. Be the bigger person, Lily." But that wasn't the deepest cut. Because a week later, someone even closer, someone I thought would always protect me, looked me in the eye and said, "Sometimes family takes what it needs. You should be proud to give it." 4 years later, they showed up again, with news so sharp it could split open the past. The fog outside my window had nothing on the storm about to hit. If you've ever felt that first punch of betrayal in your gut, drop me a comment that says, "I get it." Hoy ChatGPT. The ocean was the first thing I ever trusted. Its rhythm was steady, even when everything else in my life wasn't. I'd wake to the smell of salt drifting through my bedroom window, curtains swaying in the breeze, and the muffled sound of gulls calling from the shore. Our house sat high enough to see the waves break, white foam curling, fading, curling again. It looked peaceful from a distance. Inside, it was all smiles at the dinner table, but you could hear the strain in the way forks clicked against plates. Family loyalty was our religion, at least that's what Mom said. But in our version of Scripture, loyalty meant giving until you had nothing left, and then giving a little more, especially to my aunt. Aunt Claire was fragile. That was the word they used. She'd show up with a thin cardigan pulled tight, eyes soft and watery, and Mom would fuss over her like she was made of glass. I'd watch as Mom slid the last piece of pie in front of her, not me. I'd watch her cancel our weekend plans to drive Aunt Claire across town for something urgent that somehow wasn't. Once I was sitting on the back steps after another one of those dinners. The porch light was the only thing holding back the night, and I could hear them talking in the kitchen. Mom's voice, gentle, tired. Aunt Claire's laugh, too quick, too light. Then a pause, and a whisper I wasn't supposed to hear. "You know I'll pay you back when this all blows over." It was followed by the clink of coffee cups, as if sealing some invisible deal. I learned early to keep my questions to myself. Instead, I filled the silence with work, fixing things around the house, selling seashell bracelets to tourists on the boardwalk, saving every dollar in a jar under my bed. It wasn't rebellion, it was survival. Sometimes, on summer nights, we'd have big family gatherings on the beach. A bonfire would crackle while everyone's shadows danced over the sand. People laughed, passed drinks, shared stories. I'd sit a little apart from the circle, knees pulled to my chest, pretending to be mesmerized by the flames. But my ears caught every uneven chuckle, every careful compliment, every glance that lingered a little too long on someone else's plate. I didn't have the words for it back then, but I knew what it felt like standing knee-deep in water, smiling at the sunset, knowing the undertow was already pulling at your feet. As I grew, I carried that feeling into everything: friendships, school, my first part-time jobs. Trust was something I measured out in teaspoons, and when I found my escape, coding late at night, building little apps no one asked for, I poured myself into it. No one could take that from me. No whispered deal could undo the logic I wrote line by line. Still, every so often, the past would find its way back. A photograph of Aunt Claire on the mantel, the smell of Mom's perfume drifting down the hall, the low hum of a conversation that stopped when I walked in. Why did Mom always choose her over me? I've asked myself that question more times than I've counted, and each time, the ocean comes to mind, beautiful, endless, and always hiding a pull strong enough to drag you under. I didn't know it yet, but those waves were shaping more than my childhood. They were shaping the way I'd see every person who ever told me they cared. And soon, I'd be standing on a shoreline I didn't recognize, smiling for the crowd while the undertow returned for me. I was smiling for the crowd just like I'd pictured. Camera flashes popped, neon washed over everyone's faces in hot pink and electric blue. The ocean thumped behind the beachside bar like a second DJ, waves hitting sand, bass hitting ribs. Somebody shoved a glass into my hand. The rim fizzed against my lip. To Lily's Genius app. Cheers. Glasses collided, a bright clatter like tiny bells, then laughter. A phone screen hovered near my cheek. I leaned in, eyes half-mooned, hair stuck to my temples from the heat. My app's logo pulsed on a TV above the bar, looping the demo video. Swipes, matches, little fireworks. It looked ridiculous and perfect at the same time. "Say it!" someone yelled. "Speech!" I climbed onto the low step by the DJ booth. The floor was sticky. Confetti clung to my ankle like wet leaves. Okay. I raised the glass. "We built something that might help people meet for real." I pointed to the ocean. "Or at least not ghost each other before sunrise." The crowd whooped. A friend smacked the side of the speaker and the bass punched harder. I heard Ava's laugh cut through it. Bright, bell-clear, familiar as the smell of sunscreen. She stood shoulder to shoulder with Ethan near the edge of the dance floor, both of them shining in the neon, her copper hair reflecting purple, his jawline a clean angle under the blue. Ethan found me with his eyes. He had that look, proud, soft. I stepped down, weaving between shoulders and elbows, and he reached for me like there was no one else in the room. His t-shirt smelled like cedar and cheap beer. My ear pressed his chest. His heartbeat matched the kick drum, steady, convincing. "You did it," he said, mouth close to my hair. "You did it, Lil." "We did," I said, words lost under the music, but he nodded like he caught them, or just wanted to. Ava threw her arms around us both, cheek warm against mine. "You two are dangerous," she shouted. "Like Silicon Beach Bonnie and Clyde." I laughed, felt the neon pulse through my face. Somewhere behind us, someone set off a hand popper. Strings of foil rained down. Ethan touched my wrist, fingers circling the pulse like a promise. We slipped outside to the patio for air. Wind carried the salt, the laughter, a trail of spilled beer. String lights swung overhead, making everyone's eyes look like they held tiny stars. A couple kissed against the railing. I watched the waves fold over themselves, white, then black, then white again. "You're glowing," Ethan said, tapping my nose. "That's sweat," I said. "Hot," he grinned. Ava leaned on the railing, chin in her palm, eyes slanted toward the door like she was tracking exits by muscle memory. The ocean threw cool on our faces. For a minute, it felt simple, the kind of night that writes its own caption. Inside, the DJ cut the beat and the room roared for another toast. We drifted back in. Hands clapped my shoulders. A friend lifted my phone and snapped a quick photo of me and Ethan, my forehead pressed to his temple, both of us half laughing. His thumb traced a circle on my palm, a habit he used when he wanted me to calm down or believe him. "Stay right here," Ava said into my ear. "I'll grab us something cold." Ethan nodded, squeezed my hand once, then followed her into the crowd toward the bar. I watched them slip between bodies, neon sliding off them like oil on water. A guy from my algorithms class tried to talk to me about the matching score weight. His mouth moved, but the room had gone cottony. The sounds padded. I held my glass by the stem. Condensation ran down and wet my fingers. Where did they go? It's probably nothing. But why does my gut twist like this? I tried to pull my attention back. Head tilt, smile, fake interest. I heard my own laugh, light and practiced. Somewhere a girl shrieked at a joke. Someone bumped my shoulder. The app reel on the TV looped again. 2 profiles matched and burst into confetti. My face on the promo banner grinned back at me, a cardboard version of myself. I lifted my hand in a small wave like a child seeing a mirror. The DJ slid into a slower beat. People paired off. The room smoothed, dimmed, then brightened with the roll of color. I craned my neck. The bar. No sign. The hallway to the restrooms. No sign. The patio door half open, curtain of night beyond. I set the glass down. It stuck to the napkin with a soft pop. My smile stayed on autopilot while my eyes moved like searchlights. Ethan always texted when he drifted, a habit from nights when crowds swallowed us. My phone stayed dark in my palm, screen reflecting pink, then blue, then pink. Maybe they're grabbing a charger. Maybe Ava needed to cry about something. She did that sometimes. Head tilted, mascara controlled, stories that made you feel like holding her was an emergency. I took a breath. The air tasted like lime and sweat and something metallic under it. In the DJ lights, confetti across the floor looked like fish scales. The ocean hit the shore outside, dragged back, returned, a patient beast. I stepped toward the bar halfway, then paused. A friend intercepted me with a shout, "Photo!" and I turned automatically. The flash washed out my face. The picture preview floated up. Me, smile wide, eyes too bright. I kept the smile after the camera lowered, but it calcified, cheeks aching, jaw tight, a shape I couldn't let slip. Where did they go? The crowd swelled, pressed, opened, closed. I saw a sliver of the hallway again, a shadow cut across it. Ethan's cap? Ava's bracelet? My chest did a strange thing. One skip, then a thud, like missing a step on stairs in the dark. The DJ let the bass fall away, just keys now, high and glassy. My pulse kept going, louder than the music, counting something down. It's probably nothing. But the thought didn't land. It fluttered, then ran for the exit. I swallowed, lifted the glass, set it down again. The smile stayed, frozen in place for anyone looking. The part of me that had learned to be good at parties kept performing, head tilted, eyes bright. The part that learned undertows began to pull. I turned toward the hallway, breath shallow, and the room tilted just a little, like a boat taking a slow wave. The hallway tilted with me, a slow sway like a dock after a long day on the water. The bass thinned out to a throb behind the wall, all treble and chatter in front of me. I slid past the bathroom line, shoulder to tile, scanning the exit sign. Someone dropped ice in a sink. It clattered like hail. A guy brushed by, smelling like cologne and sea salt. My hand found the railing at the end of the corridor. Cool metal. Steady. Outside, the patio lights jittered in the wind. Beyond them, a thin door stood half open where staff carried out trash bags. Neon leaked through the gap, pink on concrete like a wound. Laughter carried from the alley, thin, then swallowed. I knew the timbre. I felt it in my molars before my ears caught up. I pushed the door with 2 fingers. It sighed. The hinge complained and stopped. Wind snuck in, lifting the hair at my neck. The ocean's roar was bigger out here, a hush, hush, hush folding over everything. I stepped into the service corridor that hugged the building. It smelled like limes and bleach and hot sand, a stack of crates, a rubber mat curled at the edges. The glow from a distant street lamp drew a pale crescent on the pavement. Voices floated, one high and breathy, one low and close. I followed them the way I used to follow the line of foam to find shells, slow, careful, trusting my feet. My phone buzzed once in my palm. I didn't look. The wind clicked bottle caps across the concrete like coins. Past the corner, the alley widened toward the ocean. Moonlight spread over it like a sheet. The neon from the bar painted one wall a feverish magenta. The other wall kept its cool blue and flat. Their shadows stretched long between those colors. They were there. Ava's back to me, hair loose, skin washed silver by the moon. Ethan faced her, brim of his cap tipped low like he didn't want the sky to see his eyes. Their bodies made a narrow country only 2 people lived in. I know I made a sound because Ava's shoulder twitched, but her hands didn't move. Ethan's did. He lifted them to cup her face like he had done to mine 1,000 times. The motion was muscle memory, just copied and pasted onto a different canvas. The kiss wasn't hesitant, it wasn't a mistake. It was practiced, a rhythm already memorized. He leaned in. She rose to meet him. I saw the tendons in his forearms go taut, saw Ava's fingers hook his belt loop like she'd done it before. I didn't breathe. The ocean did it for me, in and out, loud enough to make a point. The neon flickered against wet brick, bright, dark, bright like a bad heartbeat. A metal door somewhere slammed, and neither of them flinched. He broke for air first, pressed his forehead to hers. The alley made their whispers big. "You're the one I need," Ethan said. The words knocked something loose inside me, not a crash, more like a string cut on a kite that had been straining to get away anyway. I waited for someone to say my name. I waited for the punchline, for a laugh that turned and pulled me into it. Nothing turned. No one looked. The phone in my hand buzzed again, longer this time. I blinked, and the screen lit my fingers bone white. Unknown number. Don't go home with him. Check your shared files. He's not who... The rest of the message wrapped under itself like a wave hiding what it swallowed. I stared until the letters blurred. The wind pushed grit into my teeth. Another buzz dropped a second text in place. "Allie, now." I glanced up. Now. as if the proof weren't already soldered into my retinas. The message sat there, pulsing faintly. My thumb hovered. The pain in my chest needed something simple to do. I picked simple. I pressed the trash icon. Confirm? I tapped yes. The message slid into nowhere. I didn't screenshot. I didn't think about evidence. I thought about my mother cutting a last slice of pie and setting it in front of a woman who always said she was fragile. Ava finally pulled back, breath frosting the space between them like she'd swallowed the ocean and was letting steam out slow. She laughed, soft, the private version I'd heard in kitchens at 2 a.m. Ethan's face, God. His face softened in a way I'd memorized. The exact look he wore the night we mapped swipe thresholds on napkins. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. He did it crooked like always. The habit felt like a theft. I could have turned around. I could have stumbled back into the party and let the music stitch me up. But my shoes kept me planted. Concrete seeping cold through the soles, hands numb. The alley kept our triangle balanced in dirty geometry. Me at the dark edge, them at the center, under the moon. Somewhere behind me, someone laughed too loud, then apologized to no one. A gull screamed like a hinge that needed oil. Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced down, mouth quirking at a text I would never read. I imagined my name on his screen and felt the ground tilt the other way. He pocketed it without looking at the door, without scanning for me, without the old habit. Ava drew her thumb along his jaw. "We should go," she whispered. The words slid like oil. "Not yet," he said. I stepped back and my heel tapped a bottle. It rolled, clinked, circled back toward me. I froze. Neither of them turned. The ocean covered me like a blanket pulled to the chin. I brought the phone up as if it might hide my face. The deleted message left a faint afterimage, a ghost of shapes and warnings I didn't keep. A new notification blinked. Party photos uploading, me mid-smile inside, the freeze frame of a girl not yet extracted from the crowd. I watched that version of myself load bar by bar. This can't be real. How could they? And that message, no, focus on the hurt. It's the only solid thing. Something hot slid under my eyelids, pooled, broke. I didn't wipe it. The night air tasted like pennies. My breathing found a shallow lane, barely moving, their whispers blurred to a low hum. My ears changed channels, the distant clink of ice, the hush of waves dragging back, the soft squeak of Ava's sneaker on damp concrete. He kissed her again, slower, like savoring. A car passed at the end of the alley, throwing a sheet of white across us. For a second, we could have been anyone. Two lovers and a shadow that didn't belong. I took one more step backward. The doorframe pressed into my spine. Paint flaked, digging into skin. I let it anchor me. The world narrowed to the width of the crack I was willing to leave the door open. My throat closed around my own name like I didn't trust it. I turned my face away from them, from the neon, from the clean line of their bodies. I looked up. The moon was cold and whole. My tears tracked cold too, cooling faster than they fell. Silence grew muscle. It lifted its weight around my ribs and held. The ocean breathed again. In, out. I listened for anything that made sense. What I heard instead was a far-off echo, coffee steaming on old counters, a laugh that never fully matched the eyes, a hand reaching for mine with "trust me" already carved into the palm. I slid the door open and slipped through the gap, back into the music that suddenly felt like a language I'd forgotten. I didn't look behind me. The undertow had arrived, and it knew my name. I don't remember leaving the alley. One minute the moon was a cold coin above their heads. The next I was pushing through the crowd inside, music pounding against my ribs. The room felt smaller, louder, faces blurring into color. I caught my reflection in the window, a stranger's eyes looking back. Somewhere between the door and the sidewalk, memories started unspooling like a film I'd seen before, but never noticed the shadows in the corners. It was winter break, 2 years ago. Our tiny apartment smelled like burnt coffee and old radiator heat. Ava sat cross-legged on the couch in a hoodie that swallowed her, laptop balanced on her knees. I'd been sketching a flowchart for the app, the pen smudging my fingers black. She leaned over, eyes wide. "That's brilliant. Mind if I tweak it?" The words were light, playful. I remember laughing, sliding the notebook toward her. Her fingers were already curling around the page like it might blow away. She drew a new arrow, changed a label, tapped the pen twice before handing it back. See? Cleaner. Back then, I thought it was collaboration. Now, in the echo of that alley, the scene played with different lighting. Her grin looked sharper. The tap of the pen more like a stamp. Another night. We'd been up past midnight in the dorm kitchen, mugs ringed with coffee stains scattered across the table. She told me her rent was late again, her voice trembling just enough to make me want to cover the gap for her. She didn't ask, not outright. She never did. But when I closed my laptop to grab my wallet, her eyes followed it like it held more than code. She had a way of mixing confessions with flattery. "You're the only one who gets it," she'd say before adjusting my screen so she could read the lines I'd just written. And if I looked away too long, I'd find my work open on her desktop later, tweaked, polished, just enough to blur who'd made it first. The further I walked from the bar, the more the images bled into each other. Ava laughing too loud at a joke she didn't hear. Ava's hand lingering on my mouse. Ava's accidental saves over my drafts. Was it all a game? I reached the dorm stairs without remembering the street I'd taken. My legs burned. The hallway light flickered like it couldn't make up its mind. Inside my room, the air was stale, warm from the heater's hum. I dropped my bag and sat on the edge of the bed. Her laugh was always off. Not fake enough to catch in the moment, but bent somehow, like a seashell that looks perfect until you hold it up to your ear and hear the hollow. I lay back, staring at the ceiling. The glow from my phone painted the wall, a rectangle of faint blue. My eyes burned, but not from the light. Every story she'd told, about her mom's hospital bills, the boyfriend who drained her savings, the professor who stole her project, slid into new positions in my head. Maybe they weren't cries for help. Maybe they were the opening moves. I turned onto my side, pulling the blanket tight. The room smelled faintly of the ocean from the sweater I'd worn to the party, salt and something metallic clinging to the fabric. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the images wouldn't fade. Ava at my desk, Ava rewriting my code, Ava's lips on Ethan under the moon. The cold in my chest spread to my arms. I tucked my hands under the pillow like I could hide them from myself. I'd been blind, or maybe I just wanted to believe we were on the same side. The ceiling blurred. The heater clicked off, and the silence felt heavier than the noise before it. Somewhere outside, a gull cried. Wrong time of night for it. I swallowed, the sound too loud in the stillness. Tears came in quiet shivers, not sobs. They slipped into my hairline, onto the pillow. Each one felt like a marker sliding into place, outlining a truth I didn't want, but couldn't unsee. Somewhere beyond the wall, footsteps moved down the hall, then faded. The room exhaled. My phone lit again with a notification I didn't check. I pulled the blanket over my head, the darkness pressing close, and let the weight of it hold me still. The sun through the cafe windows was too clean for what I had to say. It lit the steam off the mugs, caught in the glass jars of sugar, made everything look warm when my stomach was cold. They were all there. Faces I'd known since freshman year, spread around a table that had seen more hangovers than heart-to-hearts. I slid into the seat closest to the window. The wood was warm under my palms. No one spoke right away. They just watched me, heads tilted, waiting. My throat tightened around the first sentence. I saw them. Chairs shifted. A spoon clinked against porcelain. No one asked who them was. They all knew. At the party, out back, I stopped, took a breath that tasted like burnt espresso. They weren't just talking. It's not what I thought it was. A girl at the end, Kara, frowned. Lily, you know Ava's been under a lot. The rent, her mom? I blinked at her. You think that's an excuse? It's not an excuse, someone else cut in. It's context. The words felt like cold hands on my neck. I'd come here thinking they'd lean forward, lower their voices, say the obvious. That's awful. We've got you. But the air between us was shifting, pulling toward a side I wasn't on. Ethan's been helping her, Max said, stirring his coffee. She needs stability right now. I laughed once, sharp enough to turn a couple heads from nearby tables. Helping her? Max shrugged. You can't really know what's going on between them. I wanted to slam my hand on the table, shake the mugs until they spilled. Instead, I leaned in. I know enough, and if you don't believe me about that... I pulled my phone from my pocket, thumb finding the screenshot folder like muscle memory. But before I could open it, Kara spoke again. "We were going to tell you about the pitch." I froze. "What pitch?" She glanced at Max, then back at me. "Ava showed your app to some people she knows at that startup mixer last week." The heat in my chest was instant, spreading up my neck. "She what?" Max shifted in his seat. "She thought maybe—" "Don't finish that." My voice came out low, almost steady. Kara's eyes flicked down to the table. "Ethan knew. He said it might be good for you." The words landed like someone pulling the floor out from under me. I stared at them, the noise of the cafe blurring into a single high ring. Behind Kara's head, a waiter passed with a tray of muffins. The scent of cinnamon rolled through, thick and sweet, wrong for this moment. He knew. It wasn't a question. No one spoke. A busboy clattered plates in the corner. I stood up so fast the chair legs scraped. The sound was louder than I meant it to be. "You're all fine with this?" Kara reached for my sleeve. "Lily." I pulled back. "Don't." The sunlight from the window hit my face, blinding for a second. I stepped into it anyway, past the counter, past the smell of fresh brew and the hiss of the espresso machine. My hand trembled on the door handle. "Even them? It's all crumbling. I have to escape." Outside, the street noise hit me like a wall. The air was cooler, sharper. My hands still shook as I shoved them into my pockets, but my legs knew what to do. Keep moving, away from the windows, away from their eyes. The door closed behind me with a muffled chime. I didn't look back. The bell over the cafe door was still ringing in my ears when I hit the dorm stairs 2 at a time. My palms had that post-adrenaline sting, like I'd grabbed something hot and didn't feel it until after. The hallway smelled like laundry detergent and old carpet. A flyer for a poetry night hung crooked. I ripped my name off the whiteboard beside my door without thinking and went in. Action first, thinking later. I dragged the plastic bins from under my bed. Lids clacked like cymbals. Drawers came open with the same rhythm: roll, fold, drop. T-shirts, chargers, the notebook with the original sketches. The tape gun shrieked across cardboard, a harsh line I could believe in. My laptop hummed on the desk, screensaver casting little galaxies across the wall. My phone lay face down. When I flipped it, the lock screen bloomed with names I knew too well. I opened settings and started carving. Mute, block, remove from favorites. I watched icons shift to gray and felt my chest loosen a fraction. Ethan's thread slid to the bottom and vanished. Ava's thumbnail winked out, replaced by a blank circle with a letter I didn't want to learn to hate. Group chats went silent. The last thing I unpinned was a photo, us in caps and gowns, ocean behind us like a promise. I sent it to the trash and didn't fish it back. The room got louder without sound. Heater ticks, hallway footsteps, the thin squeal when the window didn't quite seal. I found a rhythm in the clicks. Account by account, door by door, I closed the house of my life. A box split along a seam. I pressed the tape down with the heel of my hand. My knuckles went white. My breath fogged the plastic lid. When I stood, the room tilted a little, not like a boat this time, more like a platform you step off on purpose. I grabbed the suitcase. It was heavier than it looked, the kind of weight that doesn't complain until you've carried it too far. Outside, the sky had that thin California blue that promises heat and then forgets to deliver. I tossed the suitcase into the rideshare trunk and gave this town one clean blink. The car pulled away from the curb. The campus slid past, the eucalyptus trees, the mural with the broken heart, the corner where we used to cut across the grass. My phone stayed dark. This was the new rule. By the time the city rose up, the air had changed. San Francisco met me with a wet exhale, fog folding over the bridge cables like someone draping a scarf across a throat. The driver's wipers squeaked once, twice, a metronome for the next version of me. Steel, water, light. The palette felt honest. My rented studio was barely a room. Brick and a window, a kitchenette, a door that stuck if you didn't hip-check it. I hip-checked it. Inside smelled like someone else's cooking and paint. I set the suitcase on the floor and left it there like a guest I wasn't ready to entertain. The desk wobbled until I slid a folded pizza menu beneath one leg. The laptop fit on the scarred wood like it had been waiting for me. I opened the project and let the code pour on. Not beautiful, just necessary. I reassigned functions, split the matchmaking engine from the UI, left comments like breadcrumbs for a self I hadn't met yet. When I hit a bug, I didn't groan. I built a test and chased it until it cornered itself. The city hummed through the wall, muffled sirens, a bus sighing, a foghorn blowing somewhere I couldn't see. Every sound became a drumbeat I could type to. Night came early under the marine layer. When I finally pushed back from the desk, my spine cracked like ice breaking in a glass. I made instant noodles and ate them standing up, watching headlights smear across my ceiling. The loneliness was big, but it had honest edges, no undertow, just open water. I unpacked the last box because it was labeled MISC in a handwriting I didn't recognize at first, a softer loop on the L, a habit of pressing too hard on the final letter. I knew it by the third piece of tape, Ava. Freshman year moving day, her tagging my boxes when I'd run out of sticky notes. I sat on the floor and dug past a scarf, a Polaroid of the two of us with greasy pizza smiles, a chipped mug from a beach cafe. At the bottom, a paper envelope slid forward like it had been waiting for the quiet. No stamp, no address. Just a single initial scrawled on the flap, A. I turned it in my hands. The paper had gone the color of tea, corners soft. Inside, one sheet folded twice. My fingers hesitated, then learned the crease. Don't let her carry this alone. There are things she doesn't know yet, things I should have told long ago. We keep families together in our own ways. If it gets heavy, call me before she does. M, no number, no last name, no date, just that. Call me before she does. I read it again, slower. The edges rasped my skin. We keep families together in our own ways. The words made a small cold place behind my ribs. Who was M? Mother? Mine? Hers? I tried to hear the voice in those lines and couldn't. The foghorn groaned again like a warning you don't get twice. I folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope, then tucked it beneath the keyboard where secrets go when you need your hands free. Alone, but free. What secret could change everything? The city pressed its forehead to my window, cool and steady. I opened the laptop again. The cursor waited, patient. I created a new repo, new name, no shared links anywhere. I wrote a README in plain language like I was explaining it to the version of me who might stumble in here in the morning and need proof we'd begun. Then I set the timer for 25 minutes and hit start. Keystrokes filled the room. Rain started, soft hands on the glass. Somewhere below, someone laughed, the sound climbing the stairwell like a dare. I leaned closer to the screen, shoulders squared. When the timer pinged, I didn't stop. The spark had caught. It wasn't a bonfire. It was a pilot light, stubborn and blue, steady under weather. I let it burn. The fog made a habit of leaking through my window frame, a thin dampness that lived in the corners and crept into the pages of my notebook. The studio smelled faintly of mildew and instant coffee. When I breathed on the glass, it fogged back, like the city was answering me. I set another sticky note on the bottom of the monitor. Ship small, ship honest. The cursor blinked, a metronome. I cracked my knuckles and went in. The desk lamp carved a cone of yellow out of the gray. The rest of the room dissolved into shapes. Suitcase under the bed, hoodie flung over the chair, mug ring ghosting the wood. Outside, a bus sighed. A foghorn moaned at the bay, long and patient. Inside, the only beat I trusted was the key clack, the trackpad tap, the rhythm of build, run, fail, build, run, fail. I kept time in sprints. 25 minutes of focused combat, 5 to stretch my fingers and roll my shoulders until they popped. I talked to the code under my breath like you talk to an animal that could bolt. When a test lit up red, I didn't flinch. I leaned closer, elbows on the desk, and traced the failure like a crack in a windshield. This bug is like them. I'll crush it. One step closer. The line helped. It turned the mess into a target, gave the anger something with edges to bite. I followed stack traces like breadcrumbs through a dark park. I put on headphones and let white noise fill the room, rain on tin, train tracks humming. If I paused too long, old voices lined up near the door. Are you sure? It's not quite ready. You're overreacting. I raised the volume and typed louder. Daylight registered only as a brighter patch on the curtain. I counted mornings by the neighbor's routine, her kettle's thin whistle, then a thunk as she set a mug down. On the third whistle, I forced myself to stand, stretch, and eat something shaped like breakfast. Ramen if I forgot to grocery shop. Toast when I remembered. I wrote a sticky note that said, walk, and taped it to the knob. Most days I left it there and promised myself I'd deal with my lungs later. Rejections multiplied like fruit flies. My inbox scrolled with neat, polite paragraphs. Not quite ready. Love the mission. Timing's tough. Circle back when you have more traction. I created a folder named Museum and archived them there, as if one day I could walk visitors through and say, "Here, Exhibit A," when they almost made me stop. When it gnawed too much, I made a new build and pushed it live to a private test group I scraped together from Reddit and old classmates who hadn't picked sides. 12 people, then 20. Bugs surfaced like blisters, and I popped them, bandaged, moved forward. The matching engine coughed on edge cases. I rewrote the scoring. The chat feature lagged under load. I tore it down to studs, brought in WebSockets like reinforcements, and rebuilt the porch. I wouldn't give away the house again. Nights had their own shape. The radiator clicked awake and rattled metal lullabies through the wall. My eyes stung, but not from crying, just from staring too hard at tiny things. Sometimes I'd lie on the floor for 5 minutes, back flat on the rug, palms open, letting my spine unknot while the ceiling did its blank stare back. Then I'd get up, sit down, and go again. On a Thursday that forgot to become a Friday, an email slipped into the inbox between a pitch spam and a shipping confirmation for the cheap mechanical keyboard I couldn't afford but bought anyway. Subject line: Quick chat? My stomach did a small, cautious roll. The sender was a woman from a little company I'd circled months ago and then crossed out. The kind of place that isn't a headline but pays on time. I read it twice before answering, then made tea I wouldn't drink. We talked that afternoon. She didn't overpraise. She didn't undercut. She asked questions like she'd already installed my app and crashed it on purpose to see how I'd react. When I said I'm rewriting the onboarding to reduce drop-off after screen 3, she said, "Good. That's where I almost bailed." We set a follow-up for the next week. After the call, I stared at my hands, palms still open from where I'd been explaining something with them. The room felt bigger. The fog outside looked less like a wall and more like a curtain you could push through. The keyboard arrived in a box that smelled like warehouse. I plugged it in, ran my fingers over the keys. The first clack felt like biting into an apple. I smiled without meaning to. The sound made the room feel less lonely, as if each keystroke had its own footstep. I still had to wrestle the build to the ground. The notifications queue misfired when network conditions got ugly. I throttled the dispatch, rewrote a worker, added jitter. The analytics panel gaslit me for 2 hours until I realized I'd swapped a label and been celebrating the wrong metric. I fixed it, logged the mistake in a private doc titled "I refuse to be fooled again," then shut the laptop for exactly 10 minutes and sat on the floor, eyes closed, palms up. The quiet didn't hurt quite as sharp. When the sun sank, the window turned to a mirror. My face hovered there, pale, hair tied up, shoulders hunched forward like I was bracing for impact. I straightened. The foghorn bellowed, and this time it sounded less like a warning and more like a deep breath. Around midnight, I pushed a new test build. The pipeline ran. Green checks bloomed one by one, a row of small yeses. I exhaled in time with them, like they were teaching me how. Outside, someone laughed in the stairwell. Down on the street, a delivery truck banged its doors closed. I leaned back, let the chair creak, and stared at the letter tucked under my keyboard. I didn't touch it. The secret could wait for daylight. The laptop chimed. One new message on the test server. Noted your progress. Let's talk scope Monday. I read it again, slower. The room felt a degree warmer. At the edge of my vision, my personal phone lit on the counter. The screen showed a notification that wasn't mine. An old photo liked by an account with no face, no posts, just a name that felt too familiar without saying anything at all. The light faded before I reached for it. I turned back to the code. Hope, I was learning, works best when your hands are busy. The fog had thickened into something heavier, a slow tide pressing against the window panes. I'd kept the curtains open anyway. San Francisco's night sky was too strange to ignore, even when it felt like it was leaning in. My laptop glowed on the desk, lines of code frozen mid-build, the hum of the radiator mixed with the faint whistle of wind through the cracked seal above the sill. I should have been asleep. Instead, my thumb flicked up the phone screen, muscle memory pulling me into the familiar black and white scroll. Notifications stacked, mostly noise. Product updates, event invites from people I'd muted long ago. Then I saw it. 3 likes, all on photos from years back. Graduation night, the launch party, me and Ava sunburned on the pier. The username was an empty shell, no profile pic, No posts, following count at 0, just a handle that looked auto-generated, except the numbers at the end. My birthday. I clicked through to the profile. Blank. But the timestamp on the likes was fresh. Minutes ago. My stomach tightened, as if the cold outside had seeped through the glass and curled into my ribs. The phone buzzed in my hand. A message. No greeting. Return the idea or regret it. The contact name was nothing, just the number. But the cadence of the words, the absence of punctuation except where it mattered, was familiar in a way I wished it wasn't. I typed one letter, erased it, locked the screen. My reflection stared back, pale and grainy in the glass. The wind rose, whistling through the gap above the window, high and sharp like something trying to get in. I paced the length of the studio. 5 steps, turn 5 steps back. The old floorboards creaked in their own pattern, a rhythm that didn't comfort me tonight. My laptop screen had gone dark, but my phone lit again. Another message, same number. We both know it's mine. The radiator clicked off. The silence that replaced it felt like a held breath. I moved to the window, pressing 2 fingers to the cold glass, scanning the street below. Just a lone car turning the corner, headlights sweeping across the building across from mine. A thud from the hall made me freeze, the kind of sound that didn't belong. Too soft for a dropped package, too heavy for the neighbor's cat. I waited. Nothing. My pulse thudded in my ears. The knock came a minute later, not on my door, downstairs, then another, then the muffled squeak of the lobby door closing. I hesitated before opening mine. The hall was empty, air still holding a trace of outside chill. At the bottom of the stairs, the mailbox row gleamed under the flickering light. My box door was ajar. I knelt and pulled it open. Inside was a small padded envelope, unmarked except for my name in block letters. I took it upstairs before opening it, every step too loud in the stairwell. At my desk, I tore the seal. A USB drive slid into my palm, cheap and silver, no label. Alongside it, a folded scrap of paper. Not everyone's on their side. The handwriting was jagged, like it had been scrawled in a hurry. I turned the drive over, weighing it. My laptop sat inches away, waiting. But plugging it in felt like stepping into a rip current. Once you're in, there's no going back. The wind rattled the window. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed, then opened again. I set the USB down beside the keyboard, far enough not to touch it by accident. They're watching. Who else knows? I sat there, hands flat on the desk, eyes flicking between the envelope, the drive, and the curtain swaying slightly in the draft. The radiator clicked back on, masking nothing. Down on the street, a shadow moved across the opposite wall, stretching long under the street lamp before vanishing. I pulled the curtain shut. The laptop screen lit up with the build completion message, but my attention stayed on the silver drive, the words on the note looping in my head. The fog outside pressed harder. The fog didn't lift. It settled deeper, a slow hand on the window, while the silver USB sat beside my keyboard like a small, loaded word. I'd pulled the curtain shut, but the city still pressed through. Distant siren, a laugh on the sidewalk, tires hissing over wet asphalt. I told myself to sleep. My body didn't listen. The phone vibrated on the table. Unknown number. I let it buzz once, twice. It kept going, a steady insistence that didn't feel like spam. I thumbed it on and held my breath. Hello? A careful inhale on the other end. Then a voice I recognized, not from the alley or from parties, but from kitchens and holidays, softer, older, always with a tremor like a cup rattling on a saucer. Lily? My throat closed around the name. Mrs. Hale? Yes. The word landed small. It's late. I'm sorry. I didn't know if you'd answer. I watched the USB catch a bar of streetlight and throw it back. What do you need? She exhaled, a frayed ribbon. I wouldn't call if it weren't. I've tried everyone. The rents, the cards, everything stacked. Ava, the name snagged. She says she's handling it, but I see the notices. I don't sleep. I keep thinking of you girls, how you used to sit on my porch steps, toes in the flower beds. You were kind to her. You always were. The image arrived without asking. 2 pairs of bare feet in chipped nail polish, lemonade sweating onto our palms, the sea breeze finding us even that far inland. I could hear Ava's laugh from back then, light before it learned to shape itself. I forced my eyes back to the present, the small room, the blanket knocked crooked on the end of the bed, the cup with tea gone cold. Mrs. Hale, this isn't a good time. I know. A crinkle of tissue near the receiver. But I've been told that your app, it's moving, that there might be a way to fix things quickly if you and Ava, if you could talk. The radiator ticked, then went quiet. Who told you that? She hesitated. Friends, people talk. People talk, I repeated, tasting the metal in the words. I wouldn't ask, she rushed on, except I'm drowning in envelopes I can't open. She promised me it would all be better soon. He promised too. He said he'd make sure The voice faltered, then steadied. I don't know him. I only know the kind of look he wears. He, the pronoun dropped like an anchor. Mrs. Hale, I'm not your answer. Silence. The kind that turns a phone heavy. I could hear her swallow, hear fabric scratch the microphone. Then softer, Ava needs you for old times and the family secret you don't know. The room tilted, the letter under my keyboard pressed on my memory like a thumb bruise. We keep families together in our own ways. Call me before she does. M. I slid my hand under the keyboard until my fingers found the paper's edge and held it, as if touch could make it tell me more. What secret? I asked, voice steadier than my pulse, a long pull of air. It isn't mine to tell, she said. I thought it would come out on its own. I hoped the right people would say the right things at the right time. You know how families are. We patch, we pretend, we make do until the cracks run through the whole wall. She took another breath, and the tremor in it reminded me of glass about to ring. But it's been years of pretending. I see what it's made of her. I see what it's cost you. A gull cried somewhere, too late at night for it, again. I stared at the curtain until the weave blurred. Cost me, I said. That's one way to describe it. I'm sorry. The words were so quiet I almost missed them. I should have stepped in. I should have told her no more taking from people who love you. A tissue rasp. I'm asking you not because you owe us, because I don't know who else can stop the bleeding. My hand tightened around the letter. The foghorn moaned, low, a sound you feel in bone. On the desk, the USB waited, unblinking. Help them? After everything? But what secret? I pictured Ava under the moon, Ethan's hands on her face, the easy fit like a rehearsed dance. I pictured freshman year Ava with a cracked phone and big eyes, touching my elbow when she needed just another little thing. I pictured me at the cafe, light too clean for what anyone said there. Mrs. Hale, I said, and my voice surprised me by being gentle. I can't fix this for you. Silence again, then the brittle sound of composure being folded and put away. I understand. I mean it, boundaries. I let the words sit there, solid as the desk edge under my palm. If she wants to call me, she can, and I'll listen, but I won't be baited with debt and nostalgia, not anymore. I didn't mean, she stopped, exhaled. No, you're right. You're right to say it that way. I hope you find help, I said. Real help. Me too, she whispered. Lily? Yes? There's more kindness in you than anyone ever gave you credit for. A beat. Be careful. Some of them are not done. The line crackled, then went flat. I lowered the phone, a small weight returning to a larger one. The city light edged the mug on my table in silver. My reflection floated in the window like a ghost that refused to leave. I set the phone down and pulled the letter free. Ran a thumb over the M. We keep families together in our own ways. I heard my mother's voice as if through a cracked wall. I heard Mrs. Hale's. I heard none of the answers. On the desk, the USB glinted. In the phone's black screen, the unknown number hovered, patient as a door I hadn't opened. I slid both out of reach just for tonight and leaned my forehead against the cool glass of the window until my skin stopped burning. The fog leaned back. Curiosity didn't. It stayed, a thin electric line under the skin, humming as the city breathed and the stairwell below my door carried footsteps I couldn't place. Somewhere a hinge creaked, somewhere a plan shifted. I went to lock the deadbolt, then stood in the quiet and listened for the next ring. The night had that stretched, weightless silence before the foghorn's next call. I'd been at the desk for hours, code half compiled, a mug of cold coffee standing guard. My phone was face down. The USB still sat beside the keyboard, a coin I refused to flip. Then, creak. Not the radiator, not the wind at the window. The door. Slow, deliberate, like someone testing how far they could open it without making the hinges scream. My head lifted before my body caught up. The latch clicked. A thin strip of hallway light sliced across the floor. Shadows bled in first, 2 shapes, moving together, blotting out the gap in a staggered rhythm. "Ava?" My voice was lower than I meant, almost a growl. They stepped inside. Neon from the street hit them side on, painting Ava's hair in candy pink, cutting sharp lines over Ethan's jaw. Their eyes didn't match the colors, flat, hungry, ringed with sleepless gray. "Close the door," Ethan said. His voice had lost the warmth I used to fold myself into. I stood, the chair wheels scraping the wood. "What are you doing here?" Ava's gaze swept the room once, landing on the laptop, the desk, the silver drive. "You know why," she said. "Give us the app." The words landed heavy, not a request, not even an attempt at persuasion, just a demand, bare as a blade. I took one step back, close enough to the wall to feel its cool against my spine. "You broke in. At midnight." "We tried other ways," Ava snapped. "You blocked us. You shut us out." Her voice wavered on the last word, not from sadness, but from the effort of holding something in. Ethan leaned forward, hands in pockets like he wasn't ready to grab but could. "This isn't yours alone, Lily. We've been in it from the start." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "You stole my work? You kissed behind my back? What part of that is from the start?" Ava's lips thinned. "You think this is just about you and me? You don't even know the whole picture." "I know enough." Her eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to me. "We're cousins. Blood." The room tilted. "What?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Our mothers made us promise to keep it close. Family unity no matter what. That's why—" He gestured toward the laptop. "This stays with us, not outsiders, not just you." A flash of the letter under my keyboard burned behind my eyes. "We keep families together in our own ways." Ava took a step closer, her shadow folding over my feet. "We've been watching. You think that package was from us? Try again. You've had eyes on you since before the launch. That code, your code, runs on more machines than you realize, because of me." Hack history. The words rang without being spoken. I glanced at the laptop, at the USB, at the deadbolt I hadn't thrown tonight. My fingers curled into fists. "Get out." Ethan's tone dropped, calm in a way that was worse. "We can make this clean. Hand it over, walk away with something for yourself. Or what?" My heart was already pounding too loud for the rest. Ava reached toward the desk. Instinct snapped my hand to the small black fob on the edge. Security system armed months ago, for exactly this night I didn't believe would come. I pressed it. The alarm detonated in the room, a jagged scream that made the walls vibrate. Neon fractured on the glass as Ava flinched. Ethan swore, hands flying up to his ears. I moved sideways, keeping the desk between us, the siren pouring adrenaline into every limb. "Family!" My voice cut through the wail. "This is madness! Get out!" Footsteps thundered in the hall. Shouts. Neighbors, maybe more. Ava's mouth moved, but the sound drowned in the alarm. Ethan pulled at her arm, eyes darting to the door. The foghorn outside bellowed in time with the siren. Somewhere my pulse found the same beat. They stumbled back into the hall just as heavier boots hit the stairs. I stayed where I was, hands still on the fob, the air sharp with metal and panic. The door slammed. The siren kept screaming. And I didn't lower my hand, not yet. The alarm scream hadn't even faded when another sound tore through the night. Sirens, sharp and climbing, ricocheting off the brick outside. The neon glow from the street bled through the curtains, flashing red, blue, red, until the walls themselves felt like they were breathing. Boots thundered up the stairs. A heavy fist hit the door once. "Police!" I backed away as the lock turned. 2 uniforms burst in, weapons drawn, eyes sweeping the room in quick arcs. Behind them, the hallway lit up with more shadows, more officers. The air tasted of metal and sweat. Ava was still in the doorway, hair tangled, breath jagged. Ethan stood just behind her, shoulders hunched, eyes darting between me and the cops, like a man calculating exits. "Hands where we can see them," one officer barked. They obeyed, slow, as if their limbs weighed double. The cuffs clicked shut with a sound I wanted to savor but couldn't. Ava twisted to look at me. "Lily, we're friends," she said, voice cracking like she thought it would still work. Ethan's tone was softer, almost pleading. "You know we didn't mean—" I didn't let him finish. The words came out like a dam breaking. I told them everything. Every stolen line of code. Every shadow at the edge of my screen. Every message that came without a name. The back alley kiss under the moon. The package. The threats. The officers took notes, their pens scratching like insects in the quiet between sentences. One asked me to repeat the timeline. I did, each date sharper now that I'd spoken it aloud. My chest felt lighter with every detail, as if dragging these things into the open robbed them of their claws. Still, when I looked at their faces, pale under the strobing lights, I didn't just see two people in cuffs. I saw shadows from years ago. Ava's elbow nudging mine on the porch steps, Ethan's hand steadying me in a crowd. The shapes blurred, past and present overlapping until I wasn't sure which was real. They passed me on their way out, flanked by blue uniforms. Ava kept her chin high, but her eyes found mine, searching for something she'd already spent. Ethan glanced down, jaw tight, like the floor might offer him a different ending. The hall smelled faintly of rain. Outside, cameras clicked, voices murmured. Someone in the crowd shouted their names. The red and blue lights strobed over every wet surface, painting the street in moving wounds. Back inside, the apartment felt too still, like a theater after the curtain drops. My chair was tipped over where I'd shoved it aside. The USB still sat on the desk, untouched. My pulse finally slowed enough for me to hear the hum of the fridge, the distant hiss of tires through rainwater. The phone lit up on the table. Unknown number again, but this time, a voice message. I didn't open it. Before it could fade, another alert slid in. "Sorry, now that it's public. Another. We should have believed you." Names I knew, faces I'd once trusted. The same people who'd gone silent when I'd needed them most. My thumb hovered over each thread, then I swiped them all into the archive. I sat on the floor, back to the couch, letting the dark settle around me. Relief moved in waves, sharp, then fading, then sharp again, but under it something else remained. Not fear, not quite. More like a shadow that refused to leave the corner of the room. It's over. But were we ever real friends? The lights from the street kept pulsing against the curtain, steady as a heartbeat I wasn't sure I could trust. Somewhere beyond the glass, the city kept moving, unaware of the space I was holding here. Half empty, half waiting. I pulled the letter from under the keyboard and set it on the table beside the USB. Two things I still hadn't touched fully, two doors I hadn't opened. The sirens faded, the hum of the fridge filled the gap, and in the quiet, I realized the night wasn't done with me yet. The night wasn't done with me, but the days that followed were. They rolled into each other like fog banks, sirens traded for headlines, cuffs traded for signatures, statements filed, accounts secured, meetings where people finally looked me in the eye. By the time I came up for air, the app had a life I could feel in my pocket. Pushes lighting the screen, servers breathing hot and steady, a curve on a dashboard that finally bent up and kept climbing. I took my first real breath on a balcony I hadn't earned last month. The city scattered itself at my feet. Necklaces of headlights on the bridge, windows glittering like someone shook a jewelry box over the hills. The air was cold and clean. I let it fill me. The old undertow still lived somewhere inside, but tonight it kept its distance. My phone buzzed against my palm. Not a threat, not a blank face account. A row of small, ordinary yeses, press mentions I didn't chase. A kind email from a test user who said she met someone worth meeting, the kind of message I'd promised myself the app would make possible. I scrolled until the screen threw my smile back at me, small, unposed, the kind you forget you know how to make. I set the phone on the table beside a thin stack of papers, the kind that arrive by certified mail and wear their seriousness like cologne. The top page bore a law firm's name too elegant to trust. The letter underneath was cleaner than the rest of my mess. Names, dates, lines connecting things I'd only felt. I hadn't finished it. Part of me wanted one night where the truth wasn't a job. I picked it up anyway. The balcony light made the text look cold. The email printout clipped to the top had a subject line that didn't try to be clever: Discovery Inhale Marks Matter. The body was short, practical, a link to sealed documents, and a password I had to type twice because my hands shook the first time. The PDFs had the posture of something that thinks it knows you better than you know yourself. Affidavits, hospital forms, a notarized letter that started with a date from a year when I was too young to do more than point at the sea and laugh. Ava's name, my mother's, another woman's. The word paternity showing up where it had no business being. I read until my eyes went dry. Half-sister. There it was. Not whispered in a kitchen, not implied in a midnight plea, but printed in a serif font, stamped by a person who, for whatever reason, thought the truth should sit up straight. The balcony didn't move, but I steadied myself anyway. The city's noise fell into a pocket of quiet around me. Somewhere, a cab honked. On the bridge, a foghorn answered. I thought of the letter I'd kept tucked under my keyboard. We keep families together in our own ways, and felt the edges of it cut new. I let the papers rest on my knee and watched a cable car climb, red and stubborn. The piece I'd felt only minutes ago didn't tear. It shifted, made room. The past didn't sink me. It waded out, ankle deep, and waited. Free at last. But if she's family, what else is hidden? I turned to the section that explained the choice our mothers made. It read like plumbing. Lines rerouted, valves hidden behind drywall, a leak managed with towels until you pretend it isn't a leak. Family unity, a note in the margin said, a phrase that smelled like the church basement of my childhood. Coffee too strong, cookies too dry, folding chairs that pinched the backs of your knees while adults smiled and lied for the greater good. I pressed my finger to Ava's name where it appeared beside mine. For a heartbeat, I could see us as kids again, two girls sharing a porch step, not knowing we were sharing more. I could see the night she borrowed my code and called it love. How many parts of our story had been moving on rails our mothers laid? I set the stack down and leaned forward, elbows on the cool metal rail. The wind lifted hair off my neck. The city felt closer than it had ever let itself be. In windows across the street, lives flickered. Someone chopping an onion, someone stretching on a mat, someone turning a lamp off and choosing sleep. Be earned, I told myself, not given. Blood isn't a passcode. A last name isn't a key. The app chimed again. Another match made. Another small proof that logic and luck can hold hands if you write the rules carefully enough. I took a photo of the skyline, the moon sitting on the edge of a building like it was taking a break, the bridge laced with light, and typed a caption I'd kept in my throat for months, building something that doesn't lie. I didn't post it. Instead, I opened the camera and turned it on myself. I looked at my face the way you look at a place you might move into, where the light hits, where the cracks are, whether the bones will carry a little more weight. Then I put the phone down, picked up the lawyer's email again, and flipped to the last page. A sentence waited there, one I'd skimmed earlier. Additional parties may be implicated. The words hummed. Who else? The man who taught me to code and took credit when I shipped a feature before him? The aunt who never paid back a debt? The friend who smiled while she measured my pockets? Or someone I hadn't dared to name yet because naming makes things real? I folded the pages as neatly as I could and slid them back into the envelope. On the inside flap, I wrote a single line to myself, in pen that bled a little on the paper. Earned, owed. Then I lifted the phone and walked inside to the small table where I still made my videos. A ring light with a cracked rim, a mic that needed gaffer tape, a script I almost didn't need anymore. I hit record, let the red dot blink, and spoke to the lens like it was a person I didn't want to lie to. If you've listened this far, you know the shape of it. Betrayal dressed like love. Family using the word family as a leash. The app is doing fine. I am too. But tonight, a different truth arrived dressed as a PDF, and it asked a question I can't answer alone. I took a breath, let the quiet sit. Have you been betrayed by a best friend? Or found out blood meant something you wish it didn't? Tell me. Tell each other. I'll read them. I'll be here. I ended the recording and didn't replay it. I carried the envelope back to the balcony and set it on the table beside the cooling mug, beside the view that kept saying there's more. Keep looking. The breeze flipped the top page like a hand asking for a dance. I let it. The city glittered on. Somewhere below, someone laughed. Somewhere across the bridge, a foghorn made its low, faithful note. I leaned on the rail and listened, thinking about how trust isn't a gift you open once. It's a habit. Built, tested, rebuilt. Sometimes with strangers, sometimes with yourself. I stayed there until the first bus hissed awake and the hills traded their diamonds for a thin gray dawn. Then I went inside to ship a new version.